Captain James Reeves had heard the warnings during his orientation at the Galactic outpost. The Verith advisors, the Colfaran merchants, even the battle-hardened Zwexmora mercenaries, all of them had the same message: do not provoke a human. More importantly, never, ever threaten their pets. James had laughed it off as superstition until he adopted Stella. She was a Lyrian shadowcat, a sleek obsidian creature with luminescent eyes and a purr that vibrated through spacetime itself. Most species considered them dangerous apex predators. James considered her perfect. She would curl up on his lap during late-night shifts, her warmth grounding him in ways the cold void of space never could. Stella became his anchor to humanity, a living reminder of what he was fighting for. The problem started when Commander Vexthos arrived at the outpost. The Vorthak commander was a massive creature, 12 feet of muscle and scales, with 4 arms adorned with weapons earned through conquest. He had a reputation for cruelty and a complete lack of respect for interspecies diplomacy. When he strutted onto the observation deck where James and Stella were observing a nearby nebula, his presence alone seemed to darken the space. "Human," Vexthos snarled, his voice like grinding metal. "That creature. It is prey. Useless. Weak. In the Vorthak Empire, we would consume such things for sustenance." James's hand instinctively moved to Stella's head, stroking her soft fur. She began to purr, a sound that seemed innocent to most, but James knew better. Stella could sense hostility. She could sense fear. More importantly, she could sense threats. "She's not food, Commander," James said calmly. "She's family." Vexthos laughed, a sound like cracking ice. "Family? You waste resources on a useless animal? This is why your species will never dominate the galaxy. You are sentimentally weak." He reached out with one massive claw, moving toward Stella with obvious predatory intent. "Perhaps I will take her. A trophy. A reminder of your inferiority." That's when James learned why every species in the galaxy feared humans with pets. Stella moved faster than anything so large should have been capable of moving. She launched from James's lap and transformed mid-leap, her form expanding, her claws extending into weapons of pure energy. Her purr became a roar that shattered the observation deck's reinforced viewport. Vexthos barely managed to raise his arms in defense before she was on him, a blur of shadow and fury. The commander was strong enough to crush starships. But Stella had evolved on a world where every creature was a predator, where survival meant developing instincts that transcended raw physical power. She moved like liquid death, her strikes precise and devastating. One of Vexthos's arms went numb from a pressure strike. Another was slashed open by claws that could cut through battle armor. It lasted 30 seconds. Vexthos hit the ground bleeding from a dozen wounds, gasping for breath, his weapons scattered across the deck. Stella stood over him, her form still half-transformed, her eyes blazing with an intelligence that was absolutely, unmistakably furious. James walked over calmly and picked up his cat. Stella immediately returned to her normal size, curling into his arms and resuming her gentle purr as if nothing had happened. "You know," James said conversationally to the bleeding commander, "on Earth, we have dogs. Loyal. Protective. They've been our companions for thousands of years. Some species think we're crazy for bonding with animals instead of focusing on conquest and power. But they don't understand something fundamental about humanity." He scratched behind Stella's ears, and she purred louder. "When you threaten something we love, we don't calculate odds. We don't assess threat levels. We don't think about consequences. We stop thinking entirely and start acting. And the scariest part? We're better at acting on pure instinct and rage than most species are at calculated warfare." Vexthos struggled to his feet, backing away slowly. His 4 eyes, usually gleaming with arrogance, were now wide with something James recognized immediately: primal fear. "You nearly killed me," Vexthos whispered. Over an animal. Not nearly, James corrected gently. She was showing mercy. Because I asked her to. Think about what happens next time if I don't ask. Within the hour, Vexthos requested an emergency transfer. Within the day, the news had spread throughout the galaxy. Every diplomatic channel, every trading network, every mercenary database carried the same message: a human's pet had disabled one of the most feared warriors in known space with minimal effort. The old warnings suddenly made a lot more sense. In the following weeks, James noticed a strange change in how other species interacted with him. The Verith showed respect. The merchants offered better deals. Even the hardened HFY mercenaries nodded in greeting, a subtle acknowledgement of something they all understood now. Never threaten a human's pet. It wasn't a threat. It was a law of nature, as fundamental as gravity. James watched Stella nap on his lap, her purr rumbling softly through the quiet night shift, and smiled. The galaxy had finally learned what humans had always known. Love was the most dangerous weapon in the universe.